Hello, now usually on PH Videoblogs we're perhaps talking about a car that you haven't seen before. The GT86 is one that you will be very familiar with, but the model year 17 updates that Toyota has added to this car give me a chance to revisit a vehicle I think is perhaps one of the more significant things that happened to fast cars in recent years. Now, quite a few people disagree with that. They think it's underpowered, and Toyota has obviously been listening to all those concerns, taken it on board and changed the headlights and made the steering wheel 3mm smaller in diameter. So yes, I'm sorry for all those who thought that Toyota might react by adding a turbocharger, giving it more power. I'm sorry, it's still the GT86 that I love, quite a few people hate. Let's just talk through some of those changes first though. Now, pretty detailed really. New headlights, LEDs in them, a new wheel design. We've unfortunately lost that really neat little Boxer 86 logo on the wing vent. I don't know why, that's a shame. This one is the basic version. There are two trim levels, GT86 and GT86 Pro. The Pro gets a wing, which I'm glad this one doesn't have. You can delete it from the Pro if you want. It costs £26,410 base. The metallic paint added to this car brings that up to nearly 27 grand. Just to give you an idea, an Audi TT, the base version 1.8 TFSI front wheel drive, that costs about 28 grand. So when you look at the bold stats, the GT86 perhaps still seems like quite an expensive car, 200 horsepower for 26 grand, 27 grand. I think for a sports coupe on a dedicated rear-wheel drive platform, that seems quite reasonable. Now, of course, I could stand here and prattle on all day. I really want to go for a drive and tell you why I think the GT86 is still such a relevant car. Let's go and do that. Now, for all those red-blooded types who think that 200 horsepower does not a performance car make, bad luck. I'm afraid I quite like the GT86, but then I also like MX-5, so what do you expect? So what you're going to get from me now is some degree of enthusiasm about this new and updated model. Now, why do I like this car so much? Well, I think the fundamentals are already there really. It's just got a fantastic driver-focused feeling about it. The driving position is absolutely spot on. I love it. You sit quite low down, the wheel comes into your chest, gear stick's right where you want it, visibility is really good, the pillars are really narrow, they've got these little humps on the wings that just help you position the car in the corners really accurately, and these things all count. Frankly, I think they count a lot more than horsepower when it comes to enjoying a car on a twisty B road like this. You can have so much fun at fairly respectable speeds. Now, okay, the engine doesn't have a huge amount of torque. Indeed, there's a little graph here now on the revised display which shows exactly where there's a massive torque gap right in the middle of the power band. But to be honest, it doesn't really feel like a problem to me, because it doesn't feel like it's an inappropriate level of performance. And what you get instead is just some nice response from that naturally aspirated engine. It just shows you how sluggish turbo engines are. And I think there's just a load of really very, very GT86-y kind of detail in this car. I love the fact they've made some changes, like they've changed the rev counter so that when the rev needle is in vertical position, that's at 7,000 RPM, which is where your peak power is. It's a nice little visual reference and an encouragement to ring the car out to the top of the rev band, which is where the real excitement lies, which is how you drive a car like this properly. You use the gears, you use the revs, you give it some beans basically, and you enjoy the experience, because fundamentally it's a rear-wheel drive car with a limited slip diff, a naturally aspirated engine, a lovely manual gearbox. What is not to like? What else have they changed in here? Well, not a great deal really. It's just there. It's okay, it's a bit plasticky, it's a bit tinny, it's a Japanese car, what do you expect? But you know, I think to complain about these things is really, as Tetsuo Tada, the chief engineer, once told me when I drove the car with him in Scotland, he said, if you think the car's too slow, too plasticky, all the rest of it, you just don't get it. And he doesn't make any apologies for that, and frankly, fair play to him. Now, one of the other things he did say in a press release accompanying the launch for this newly updated car is that the more significant changes have actually come under the body. So what they've done is they've tweaked the suspension a bit, they've backed the damping off a tad, they've changed the spring rates, they haven't exactly said how, they've reduced friction and dampers, they have added some increased body stiffness to the rear of the car and to the suspension mounting points, tweaked the rear anti-roll bar a little bit to make it a little bit stiffer at the back. Now, all that should point to it being a little bit pointier at the front, maybe a little bit more oversteery on the track. And that really is where the changes to this car have been focused. He says that The biggest change to this car is in the electronics and the driver support systems. So stuff like the traction control and the stability control and things like that. Now they have been tweaked with experience from the Gazoo racing program in the Nürburgring 24 hours. So really, I think to enjoy what has been done to this car, we need to go to a track. Handily, that's where I'm going right now. Right, so here we are on Blyton Park circuit to see if all that talk of Nürburgring competition breeding really has transformed the GT86 into a fire-breathing sports car. What do you think? Well, no, of course it hasn't. It's still a road car. It's still not particularly powerful. But even just in those first couple of corners, you feel what makes this car stand out. It's just got lovely response. The steering is so accurate and so quick. And that front end, although there's a little bit of understeer, a little bit of mush, it just turns in so neatly and precisely. And here I am, this is in the new track mode, which minimises the interference from the stability control. You can see I'm having to fight it a little bit through there. It's kind of a bit of a to and fro between myself and the black boxes, but as you'll see, it does give enough latitude for you to really begin to exploit the rear wheel drive, the limited slip diff, and just enjoy playing with the balance of the car. And that's really what the GT86 is all about. It's just playful. Do you see there? Okay, that was a reasonably showboaty corner, but even those ones where you just turn in and you just feel your hands going a bit light around the wheel and the weight shift around the car, you get all that through this car. Everything about it is just about telling you what's going on, connecting you to just the process of driving it and enjoying that. And I love the fact as well that the engine is really fizzy, and you can probably hear how quickly it's reacting to those throttle blips and things around here. That just tells you about the nature of this engine. It still sounds a bit rough, to be honest. It's not the nicest naturally aspirated engine that was ever put in a road car, but you know, so much nicer than a lot of the kind of stodgy engines we're seeing in other mainstream cars. And I think what's quite amusing is the same keyboard warriors who moan that this car isn't powerful enough and doesn't have enough mid-range are probably the same ones who criticise the 718 Cayman and Boxster for having a dull turbocharged engine. You know, there really is, there's no pleasing some people, is there? But you know, just look at how much fun I'm having in this car. I mean, this is, you know, the kind of behaviour might get you a bit of a ticking off on a track day, but you can chuck this car around. It's got cheap Prius tyres on it. I'm not doing silly speeds. I'm just having a right ball. But let's see what happens if you turn everything off. Hold this button down. There we go. Right, everything's off now. Let's see what that gives us. So here we are into chicane. Lovely little blips there. It definitely does feel nice and accurate on the front end. I think whether it's that new anti-roll bar at the back or just some playing around with the settings, it's super precise on the front end. So trail the brakes into that, and you can just play with the angle. So we've got another left-hander coming up here, brake, turn in. You can feel it start to rotate under the brakes, and it's already dialing out any understeer that might be there. And immediately, it's not a scary rotation, it's just a nice, playful rotation that gives you options. You can drive this car neatly, you can drive it correctly, or you can prat about like a bit of a hooligan. It's just got options, so often lacking in modern performance cars. It is old school like that. I do like it. I really, really enjoy the fact that this car isn't smothering what it's doing under layers of electronic intervention, active dampers, all that kind of stuff. And the gearbox is lovely. The ratios are really closely stacked, so you're always up and down through the gears, but that's no problem. The pedals are all perfectly spaced. It reacts way better than any turbo engine to the throttle. Right, let's have another go at this corner up here. So 4th gear here now, into 3rd, weight onto the front, pitch it in on the brakes. It's just so easy. It's really, really simple. Anybody could drive this car. So you can turn it, get it sideways on the brakes. There. Anybody who says 200 horsepower isn't enough to enjoy yourself is frankly talking. This car has got plenty of entertainment value, and if you can't enjoy what this car does, I think you maybe need to take a look at yourself, because it's just so much fun. And that's it really. What this car does is it's for people who appreciate that performance is about more than numbers on a spec sheet or pub bragging rights. It's about how the car makes you feel, and this one makes me feel really happy. And I absolutely love the fact that Toyota has stuck to its guns and done absolutely nothing to appease those people who are shouting out and saying it needed more power. What it has done is just made a few detail improvements for those of us who do get it, and make sure that we just enjoy it that little bit more. Bravo to that.